because he's here, and it's and I was trying to filibuster till 10:30 exactly, but forget about it. Ian Cameron, head coach of South Georgia Tormenta, coming in before you guys get to camp. Coach, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is John. It is Nick hanging out with you. You got training camp tomorrow, sir. What's the off season been like?
Oh, the off season is a long and dark and treacherous period. Only able to get through it with the light of a new season. You get to the end of the season and you feel like you need the rest, and then after about 2 weeks you want to get back on the field and get working. So, it's a great time with family and Christmas and all those things. But we are made to work, and we're excited to get back at it.
No doubt about it. Nick, for Ian Cameron.
So you got the season right around the corner. What's the thing so far with the team that you've been most impressed with?
Well, we've not had a whole lot of time with the new CBA. We don't spend a whole ton of time with the guys prior to Feb 1. But I think as an organisation, it's a rebuild year. We've got a lot of fresh faces for a lot of new guys, and their level of communication has been really good so far. Their intent to come into the market early, get training together early, all those things you can't choreograph that. You can't put demands on that. You're certainly pretty positive when you see it happening, and it gives you hope. It gives you it gives you that kind of credibility with the boys that they know what's required right now. And once we get together tomorrow, then we'll hit the ground running, hopefully.
What was the biggest lesson that you and the staff took from the 2023 season that you're applying to all of your conversations getting ready for Feb 1? What was the biggest lesson that you learned last year about yourselves and the team to get you ready for the 24 season in one of the toughest leagues around?
Well, look, I think I've said this to you before a few times. Our staff are in our infancy as coaches, so there's always things that we learn about ourselves, about coaching, about how to navigate a season that you build upon. I think in terms of the actual output and performance from last year, there's certain game model aspects of our team that were just short of expectations in terms of the amount of goals we conceded, and then our aptitude on either end on set pieces. Those are big parts of a game model that we weren't a top team in. I think we had enough goals in us. I think we had enough possession. I think we had enough creativity. But those domains weren't strong enough. And part of that was bad luck and so forth. Part of that was structure. But part of that is by design, and it's the parts that we recognise are by design in terms of the qualities and aspects of the group dynamic that we have to be able to manage those different kind of game model parts. Those were missing last year, and we've made strides this year in terms of the composition of the squad to try to rectify them best we can. Now, will we? It's on paper we will be much stronger in set pieces, both ends. On paper we'll be stronger defensively, and on paper we'll hopefully score as many goals, which, on paper then we should be in the top 4, but that's yet to be proved. But those are certainly dynamics that were missing last year that we've had to address to make sure that we're not limiting our potential to just our output of goals or just certain ways of being creative. And there's lots of ways to win games, and we were just missing in too many departments last year.
A question, and this is sort of a larger coaching question, not just specifically for your squad, but as a coach, as a leader at this part of the season, I think part of it is trying to get buy-in, right? And trying to get, hey, look, a lot of fresh faces, buy into our system, believe in what we're doing. As a manager, as a leader, how do you convince people to buy in these new fresh faces to the philosophy and the process that you're trying to build down there?
Yeah, I don't mean to get boiled down to semantics. I go back and forth on the term buy-in. I mean, it's something that's used a lot. I don't know if I quite agree with that terminology necessarily, but the grander scale of it is we have to have a common way of working, and we have to have a real understanding of what we're trying to achieve on the field together. And those things takes time, but on the front end, it's got to be a lot of. In the front end, it's a little bit more autocratic because the guys have got to get used to what the coaching staff want and to employ on the field. But to do that, our kind of methodology is if we can program them and come to real understanding and seduce them to what we are wanting the group to exhibit on the field, and if we can put a lot of work into that, then that's 70% of the game. Then the other 30% of the game is their freedom and their creativity. But that comes to fruition and becomes more fluid when they're really given a strong foundation. And it's the foundational aspects of what we want to employ in the field that we have to put the most work in on the front end of the season. And there's no shortcuts to it. It's being on the training ground, having consistency in our habits, consistency in our message to the players, them getting us building the credibility with them by us being the example of exactly what we are looking for, and then holding the accountability. So we have to have a clear vision of what we're trying to do, a vision of success. We have to define all the processes and the boys to learn the processes that are put in place to achieve that vision. And then comes the tough part, the day-to-day accountability, to make sure that we're sticking to the tasks that we've set for ourselves. So that's the process that we start to undertake. And in that, some guys just follow it blindly. Some guys need a little bit more seduction. Some guys have more questions. So you learn those personalities. And that's the fun part of what we're about to enter in the next 4-5 weeks of preseason prior to opening up against Fuego.
Ian Cameron, head coach of South Georgia Tormenta, hanging out with us here on SDH on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Since we're in the coaching element, one of our watchers, listeners, is down in Charleston, and he wanted to know if you learned a lot from John Milracy, the former head coach at Tormenta, when it came to figuring out your stylistics and things like that. Who were some of your role models when you were growing into the coach that you are, and who do you have on speed dial when you have questions?
And there's no question that the experience with John was formative in my career. I got to watch the staff from the outside for a year when I was a USL 2 coach, and then came in to work with them for a year, which was great. I think in terms of my game model and what I like to see employed in the field, I think the origins of that come from a much younger age. Come probably from my father. And my family in general, and we're quite a big football family. My dad was a pro football player. My sister was a very good player. My sister and I played together from a very, very young age every week. So we have certain dynamics that as a family are just integral to the way that we see the game. Not all the same, but for the most part, those foundations came there. And I think what the biggest journey I've taken when I've worked with Brad Russo at Mercer University, when I've worked with John, when I've leaned on Darren and Nitra in terms of this organisation, is becoming a coach and becoming a manager. I think the football ideology side, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but is that the stylistic side is I'm quite insular when it comes to that, and I have quite a clear ideology in my head. Not the right ideology, not the wrong one, but I've always had that, and it's been ingrained in me from my upbringing and my formative experiences playing football as a young man. But the learning to become a manager, the learning to how to run an organisation, how to create the environment conducive to a high performance environment, those are learned experiences, and I've got great knowledge from working with Brad. To give an example, somebody I greatly admire that's been in our leagues who stylistically were very different, and I mean very different. But in terms of organisation, I thought Jay Mims at Omaha was outstanding. And I solicited his advice quite recently in a Zoom call prior to him joining the Memphis organisation to kind of learn from how he builds a team and so forth. Now, what we do a game model is different, but in terms of there's so many coaches in this country that you can really learn from, both from afar and from close, on just how they run the operation. What you do in the tactics on the field, that's idiosyncratic, but how you run an organisation, I think there's so much commonality in the top people and how they do that us as a young staff, we're still trying to learn, and that's where we're trying to steal ideas left, right, and centre.
Nick, go for it.
No, I think I'm kind of at a pause there, because I think that's such a great answer, right? how far back you can draw these experiences that season, everything that you're doing today, and the sort of growth model that you've put into place. For me, it's fascinating anytime you get an opportunity to talk to a manager, a leader of an organization, because it's interesting to hear sort of the genesis of how they became the person who they are, how they are today. And I think it's wonderful that you talk about how your family played a role in that, right? Your dad's success, your sister being a great footballer in her own right, and then you coming along and growing and developing with that as well. There's not even really a question of it. I think it's just important that when we talk about managers who are coming up in the game nowadays, just generally speaking, that it's not just this textbook mentality of this is how to be a football manager, but also like there's these other great experiences in life that you can bring in. And I think that it provides just this wealth and this depth of knowledge and experience that Ian, I love hearing you talk about. I think it's amazing.
Well, just to piggyback off that real fast, if you don't mind, I think management is so rewarding and it's an amazing job, but it's so incredibly difficult in terms of the mental load. It affects your family, it affects everything you are, because it's just a 24/7 immersion in it. And I think within that, when you decide to do any sort of management in any field, in any industry, and you want to become a leader, if you're constantly there's lots of other really great ideas out there, and you're never disputing that. But if you're constantly a chameleon and trying to jump from one idea to another idea and steal this and steal that, then you can lose yourself, and it becomes very tough. So when the rainy day, you need some conviction, because if you don't have conviction in a way of playing or a style, or then it's really tough to begin with. So having conviction, right, wrong, and different, of what that is, can really give you that can get you through things. And you're going to stand in front of a group of 22 boys or girls and tell them, we're going to do something. You better have passion, and you better have conviction in your voice, and you better believe in a style and want something, because all of a sudden 20 years of your career could go by, and you're being somebody else. And if you're constantly trying to be somebody else, that'd be tiring. That'd be really tough. Now, that's not to say you don't steal stuff. You look at your circle of competency, I think, and say, okay, this is what I'm really good at. This is where my core strengths are. And then everything out of that circle, get other people to do it who are better than you, right? So I've got lots of people in here in my organization who know stuff I have no idea about, and I lean on them so heavily for stuff. And then my circle of competency, I think, is my ability on the field to teach people and to make them buy, to steal the phrase, to buy into what we're trying to do, to play in a common way. So I think you have to have a certain degree of narrow-mindedness and conviction in what you're doing, while still having awareness of what's outside of your scope and ability, and what you need to steal from either other people or other ideas. And it's the balancing act of that, of staying true to yourself, enjoying the product you have in the field, and then being smart enough to try to learn what else is out there that you don't quite grasp right now. And that's what you're constantly trying to do.
Another couple of minutes here with Ian Cameron as he gets ready for training camp down there in Statesboro with South Georgia Tormenta and USL League One. You mentioned all of the new faces, and there's a lot of new faces. Just to give folks an idea as to who is out of contract and not returning: Arthur Boswa, Heckenberg, Dalton Knutson, Deshaun Nemhard, Jake Dingler, Keziah Sterling, Kingsford Ajay, Makweli Akali, Pablo Hara, who's now in Richmond, TJ Bush, Toby Otieno. But you're bringing back Jackson Curry, Fedor Fonseca, Preston Kilwine, Nick Okoto, and you're adding some names. Daniel Steedman, a name that diehard Atlanta United folks remember from the draft. Where is the roster assembly right now? Do you still have some spots that you're trying to bring in? Are you bringing in the trialist family? How are things shaking out right now with the roster here in 24?
It's a mix of both. There's definitely a couple of spots that we're still assessing, and we have guys coming into pre-season to try to earn the right and for them to learn about our environment and see if it's the right place for them, and vice versa for us to see how do they fit in and with the way that we coach and so forth. So that's an ongoing process. In terms of the squad composition and how we go about it, I think like everything in life, you look at the environment you have and you decide, okay, what's the right pieces for this environment? We're looking across the board, and as a coach, you're saying, okay, I'm watching Omaha sign these seasoned veterans from the championship. I'm watching Lexington and what they're doing. And
they are blowing out the salary cap, man.
And there's, they must be spending through the wazoo. But Darren's a phenomenal coach and has so many contacts that I don't have. So you can, again, the point I was making before, you could get lost in that and start chasing, okay, is their methodology right? We just try to stay, okay, what suits Tormenta FC? We are a farm school for young talent. We add in a couple of older players that can give us the maturity and help us with the game model. But our niche is young, up-and-coming players who are striving to fulfill their potential and one day will move on to bigger leagues. That is our model. So while it's enticing to look at the way other teams do it and how much experience Greenville are returning and how much experience they have on their bench, I can't simulate that. I don't have Rick's experience. I don't have his know-how. I'm just young and dumb and have enthusiasm. And I need players who are young and dumb and have enthusiasm. And we're going to jump on a bus together and we're going to go on a journey together. And we might not take all the right turns and we might not have all the schematics laid out, but we'll have a hell of a lot of energy and we'll play a brand of football that's exciting and invigorating. And I will put out there, the last time we rebuilt a squad, the organisation did a really nice job and had some silverware at the end of the year. And we're going to trust that process to do it. And I don't think we'll win the pre-season ballads in terms of the names and so forth that we acquire, but we are looking for young guys who we see great potential in, that we think if we cultivate, allow them to blossom, I think it could be something pretty cool that'll be on the field in terms of wearing the Tormenta crest.
No doubt about it. Jake's back on a 1-year deal, and there are some names that you're going to have to learn about this roster coming up in 2024. Coach, enjoy training camp. I know that you're itching. You and the staff are itching to get back to it and get everything squared away for 2024. Thanks for coming on the day before. You're like, this is like your -1 press conference opportunity before everything hits on Thursday. As always, Ian, great to have you on here on SDH on the morning show. Good luck tomorrow, and obviously we'll be keeping an eye on training camp and getting ready because season will be here before we know it.
Thank you both, and thanks for the continued exposure you give USL One. It's a great product, and you guys help elevate the league in general. So we're looking forward to another great season.